TikTok CEO Xiao Zhiqiu testified in front of a hostile and united congressional committee on Thursday, mostly failing to convince lawmakers that the user data it collects from more than 150 million Americans is protected from the Chinese Communist Party. But despite the grilling by Congress, there are doubts about whether the government can successfully ban the popular video sharing application, and whether this hearing was mostly about theatrics, angry rants, and grandstanding. We'll dive into these topics next on Today in Tech. Hi, everyone. I'm Keith Shaw. Welcome to Today in Tech. Joining me to discuss this TikTok testimony is Chris from Behind the Computers. Hi, Chris.
Hey, how's it going? Good.
It feels like a little special bonus episode. This might be the first episode where we actually just talk about one thing.
Yeah, I mean, we did say we were gonna do an episode on this, but I think we forgot that during the week.
We recorded it. We recorded our next episode late yesterday, and so we're doing a little bit of like Marty McFly time machining, where we're actually doing this one before the one that's going to be next. So if you watch that one next, just know that we already did it.
But I mean, it's hard not to miss this.
Yeah,
it was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I mean, this was a 5-hour hearing in front of this was now Congress in the House of Representatives. The last time we sort of covered an issue around Congress was the Ticketmaster hearings, which was a Senate hearing. So there were fewer people on the committee for the Senate ones. The reason it went 5 hours is because I think there was like 25 people or something like that on the committee, and they all get about 5 minutes. And so I remember it started the hearing started, I think, at either 10 or 11 a.m. And when we were done with the recording, they were still live streaming this. This was like 2, 3 o'clock, right? That it was still streaming. We watched a little bit of that, and that was like 4 hours into the hearing.
Yeah, I mean, it went on for a while, and that's why I think what's really good is those kind of like reviews. It's like a hearing in review.
Yeah, and now so
they kind of chop up the important.
So
bits.
We'll admit that we did not watch the entire 5-hour hearing. We're picking up clips and we got roundups, and we're going to try to give our listeners and readers sort of a roundup of what we thought was important. First off, I think again this showed that this was an issue that brought together Democrats and Republicans. It should be pointed out that this doesn't happen a lot. It did happen a little bit with the Ticketmaster one. Maybe if you just have the word tick in your name, like either Ticketmaster or TikTok, that'll bring together the two parties. No, I don't. That was a really bad pun, Chris. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
But again, it is rare when you see these representatives and congressional members that are united about this. So just to point that out from the beginning, they were all focused on TikTok. Like every representative. Like sometimes you get some sympathetic, politicians, that throw softball questions out. I don't think there were any softball questions.
Yeah, no, they were really hard on him. I think rightfully so. I mean, it was almost like throwing a piece of meat in an ocean full of sharks. Yeah, that's what he looked like. He just looked like a piece of meat, and everyone's just going at him. And I mean, again, rightfully so, because I think there's a lot to be answered from TikTok, if that makes sense.
Right, and obviously the biggest issue for a lot of the politicians and the government is the fact that TikTok is a subdivision of ByteDance, and ByteDance is owned by China, right?
Yeah, I mean,
and so they're trying. And TikTok is trying to distance itself from that. They're trying to say, well, we're headquartered in the U.S. And so a lot of the issues became about user data. Like, what, do you protect the data? Do engineers in China have access to the data? And all sorts of these things. And were you coached by the Chinese Communist Party before this testimony? So I think our first clip that we want to show is sort of about its relationship with China. Correct?
Yeah. Let me throw that up.
5 minutes. I thank the chair. Thank you, Mr. Chu, for joining us today. I think we've heard you say multiple times that TikTok is not a Chinese company, that ByteDance is not a Chinese company. But according to an article in today's Wall Street Journal, quoting here, China's Commerce Ministry said Thursday that a sale or divestiture of TikTok will involve exporting technology that has to be approved by the Chinese government. Continuing to quote, the reported efforts by the Biden administration would severely undermine global investors' confidence in the U.S., said Xu Juting, a ministry spokeswoman, continuing to quote, "If that is true, China will firmly oppose it," she said, referring to the forced sale.
Right. Now, hold on for a second. Just pause that for a
Despite your
second.
assertions to the contrary,
Yeah. So that didn't help their case. Like when the Chinese government actually came out and said that they would oppose this sale or whatever, that didn't help the TikTok CEO, who was basically trying to say, "Oh yeah, we have nothing to do with the Chinese government."
They kind of made it obvious that there's a heavy influence from the CCP.
Right. All right. See if you can continue that. See if what his answer was, or
China certainly thinks it is in control of TikTok
Yep.
and its software. Is that not correct?
Congressman, TikTok is not available in mainland China. And today we're headquartered in Los Angeles and Singapore. But I'm not saying that, the founders of ByteDance are not Chinese, nor am I saying that we don't make use of Chinese employees, just like many other companies around the world. We do, use their expertise on some engineering projects.
But according to their ministry spokeswoman, it would be a divestiture of exporting technology from China. So they
Wait, hold on.
China,
yeah.
Don't they have TikTok in China?
I think that they have something that's like TikTok, but it's not
Right.
called TikTok. So
It's called something else. But
It's
basically,
semantics. It's semantics.
yeah, under the hood, it's TikTok.
It's still TikTok, but
Yeah.
they just named something else.
All right. Let me go back.
thinks they own it, even though you do not. Madam Chair, I'd just like to ask unanimous consent to put today's Wall Street Journal
Without
article
objection, so ordered.
into the record. And Mr. Chu, I wouldn't ask you to discuss any privileged attorney-client materials, but did anyone aside from your lawyers assist you in preparation for today's hearing?
I prepared for this hearing with my team here in DC.
Did anyone at ByteDance directly provide input, help, or
He's not gonna say
instruction?
anything.
He's
for
not
your
going to.
testimony
He's not
today?
going to say yes on this one.
Congressman, this is a very high-profile hearing. My phone is full of well wishes. But I prepared for this hearing with my team here in DC.
Sorry, we're getting some lag, but
Are you
Yeah.
very,
willing
very
to
political
share,
answer.
Who helped prepare you for this hearing with the committee? And you can do that
I
in
can
writing.
follow up with you if
Okay.
you like.
That's
you
the answer. If
guarantee
you
that-
don't want to sort of answer, you'd be like, "Oh, I'll follow up
so
with you," and then not tell you the truth.
He's answering with a non-answer. I mean,
Yeah, there were a lot of that. There was a lot of that in the hearing. It's like you can sort of read between the lines by him not saying anything. You know the real answer.
yeah, and I feel like I think it's good that they're having this hearing, and I mentioned this to you earlier. I think it's good that they're having this hearing because it does give an opportunity to kind of show, the true colors of the TikTok CEO or TikTok in general, right? They're
Yeah.
just dodging. He's just dodging questions. He's not going to be able to give hard yes, no answers.
Yep.
Why would he?
Right.
He would incriminate the company.
Or you would be lying to Congress, which is a
Yeah, or
serious
you'd be
issue.
lying.
So
And-
don't lie, but don't tell the truth either.
I think if
Or
anything,
the
what
complete truth.
Yeah, I think if anything, what the hearing does is just kind of like shows. Let me try to think of a way how to say this. It just shows how guarded they are on being transparent.
Right.
Even though he says TikTok is trying to be transparent, they're being transparent with saying they're transparent, but not actually being transparent.
Right. Anybody that ever tells you they're being transparent is usually not being transparent.
Right.
Because if you were, you wouldn't have to say that you were. So, one of the things that's interesting from this China perspective, a thought that came into my head is that because it's about the data, but it's also about China. It's about China having potential access to this user data. And then, so I was thinking about it, like, the popular app on the phone, probably 10, 15 years ago was Angry Birds. Do you remember that game?
Yeah.
And so this was developed by a company in Finland. And we are, we're friendly with Finland, I believe. And, I don't know if U.S.-Finland relations have changed over the years.
They're probably better than U.S. and China.
But everybody had that game. And what if it came out that, somehow that user data for people playing Angry Birds. So it's not about, there is parts about the app. So I just think that there wouldn't have been an uproar if somehow it was discovered that Finland technicians or engineers. So it's about China. It's about the data. but it's also about the app. And I think that there were a lot of questions after they sort of went through a lot of the different, like, do you have access to this? Do you not have access to this? Where are the servers? All this other stuff. There did become some larger issues about the app itself. So the next one that I want you to play is now this was a guy who said he was, one of the congressmen was a IT professional. So I'm always excited when we have, political representatives that know something about IT and technology.
It makes the conversation more intense when you have someone who has a background in what it is, right? So it's like tech. He has a background in tech. So we think. I mean, that's what he says.
Yeah.
Right. So
you've got another good clip here of him basically admitting that, and then asking some really cool questions about backdoors and secret entrances and things like that.
Johnston for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Chu, I'm an information technology professional. Been doing it for most of my life.
He definitely looks like an IT
evasive in many of your answers.
That came
I
right
want
from
to talk to
Central
you
Casting.
in some language that maybe you'll better understand. Ones and zeros. Okay? Let's talk about the Citizen Lab report. This is something your team frequently mentions in hearings as a way to exonerate yourself. For example, in the limitations section, it reads, we could not examine every source code component and test in the apps in every circumstance, which means our methods could not find every security issue, privacy violation, and censorship event. So it's an incomplete assessment. The report notes that TikTok's data collection using third-party trackers was in apparent conflict with the GDPR and that multiple themes were censored by TikTok.
All right, hold on, pause that right there. So the report that TikTok is trying to promote as, hey, our app is safe, or our app, does this and this and this, then actually comes out and says that they're probably in violation of GDPR in Europe. That's an issue. I mean, you know how serious those people are about.
You have to be
GDPR
compliant.
stuff.
You have to be compliant. If you're not, you get, millions and millions of dollars of fines.
Yeah,
you have to.
Yeah, and so they've already admitted that there are trackers and things that they can't test for, and then there's also all this other code that they couldn't test to see if it was true or not.
Yeah.
All right, keep going.
Shocking to me is the shared source code between TikTok in the United States and the CCP-censored Douyin. The Citizen Labs report says that many of the functions and classes were identical, and that the differences in behavior between TikTok in the United States and Douyin in China are slight changes in hard-coded values.
Is that the app that is used in China?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Incredibly,
Actually, let me back that up.
Yeah. Douyin?
classes were identical. And Citizen Labs report says that many of the functions and classes were identical, and that the differences in behavior between TikTok in the United States and Douyin in China are slight changes in hard-coded values. Incredibly, specific censorship parameters from Douyin are present in TikTok, but just turned off.
Yeah.
The authors say that for unknown reasons, the parameter variable itself is preserved. So while Citizen Lab may have been afraid to say the obvious conclusion, Mr. Chu, I am not. TikTok's source code is riddled with backdoors and CCP censorship devices. Here's the truth. In 1 million lines of code, the smallest shift from a 0 to a 1 on just one of thousands of versions of TikTok on the market will unlock explicit CCP censorship and access to American data. Mr. Chu, as CEO of TikTok, why have you not directed your engineers to change this source code?
And then we get back into the...
Congressman, thank you for the question.
Have you directed them to change the source code?
Like what we are offering and my fourth commitment?
Have you directed them to change that source code?
Congressman, if you give me a bit of time to just...
No, I don't. It's a yes or no question. Have you directed your engineers to change that source code?
I'm not sure I understand.
Why are you allowing...
How do you not understand the question?
Well, it's because he's just trying to...
No, I know.
He's not going to say no. He's not going to say yes.
TikTok to continue to have the capacity for censorship, and yet you claim here that you don't. Let me remind you of something. Do you realize that making false and misleading statements to Congress is a federal crime?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So have you directed your engineers to change that source code?
I am giving third-party access monitoring by experts. And Congressman, you are an expert on this. You could agree with me that no other company
TikTok
does
source
this.
code is the same as Douyin? What percentage?
I can get back to you on the specifics.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. Where was the source code for TikTok developed? Was it developed in China or in the United States?
It's a global collaborative effort. Like a lot
Was
of
it
code for a lot of
developed
companies.
was it developed in China? Some of it?
Some of it is.
Okay, at ByteDance. When it's compiled in the compilation process, can bytecode be manipulated? We've talked a lot about source code. What about the bytecode, the ones and zeros that actually execute on the device?
That,
Can
to
it
give
be
you
manipulated?
comfort,
Yes.
Congressman, to give you comfort, that's why we're giving third-party monitors.
Yes.
As an expert, I think you can agree that very few companies
I've got
offer
the
to do this.
report here
Who has
by
access to that third party?
Citizen
All right, I
Lab.
think that this is just going to go back
We
and
get the
forth.
idea. We get the idea.
What's interesting about, to me, from the censorship angle is that if this was Twitter and it came up that there was the potential for code to censor content or direct certain content, you know, the U.S. would have a problem with the ability to do that. And he's mad that this ability is not turned on. Or is he mad that there's this ability at all? And maybe that's what his point
Probably
was.
the ability.
Yeah.
And the fact of that ability, but the other thing too is the third-party access. Is there's backdoors into the code. Now, what the CEO said.
So if you notice the glitch in the video, we had a fire alarm here that went off, and so we had to stop our recording and start up again. Interestingly, right when we were talking about Twitter or censorship and TikTok, and so
Fire alarm goes off. That's what a coincidence.
all right. So the point I was going to make was I thought it was interesting that if this was Twitter talking about censorship and algorithms and sort of directing traffic and things like that, there would have been an uproar over the censorship part. In fact, you did say that Twitter did have backdoors, right?
Yeah, it did have backdoors, and there should have been more of an uproar over it. But
Right.
it's
But obviously-
it's political. It's the political game.
Yeah,
right?
obviously, if it's political content that's favorable to one party over the other, then of course, one party's going to.
They're not going to
yelling.
report. Yeah, they're not going to report on those leaks. But
Right.
supposedly, both sides of the party had some backdoors. Both were doing. Both were looking in. Both were trying to censor and unblock content.
And there was a lot of discussion and questions about sort of the influence of the app, especially on younger users. There were several questions talking about violent threats against Congress members, protecting kids from seeing harmful content like suicide. I mean, there were some really powerful videos that were shown. What do you have there? Which one do you want to sort of bring up in terms of their influence? And again, this comes to the issue of the version in China. It's been reported that most of the videos that get shown to Chinese users, it's all about math and STEM and educational sort of videos. And when you look at the US version, which apparently has no quote unquote censorship, the algorithm picks, goofy dances and some of these challenges that could be harmful and, content that can sort of undermine.
Yeah, I like to just call it damaging content.
Yeah.
It's just damaging content. It's just a waste of time. You're going to lose brain cells. You don't really learn much from it. But yeah, I have a clip here.
Okay.
It shows a congresswoman.
Is this the one that was talking about the threat of violence against her?
Yeah. So apparently there was a threat made on the Congress people here in Congress about shooting someone, and it was on TikTok.
Yeah.
It was on TikTok. So here it is.
Chair recognizes the lady from Florida, Ms. Kamek, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. Shou, are you aware of Chinese Communist Party leader Chairman Xi Jinping's comments in May 2021 during a Communist Politburo study session where he instructed colleagues to target different countries, different audiences with short form video? Are you aware of these comments? Yes or no?
Congressman, I'm not aware of these comments.
Okay. Well, and as was pointed out by Chairwoman Rogers, you have regular contact with Chinese Communist Party Secretary, Mr. Zhang Fuping, who is your boss at ByteDance, correct?
No.
No.
No, he's
Interesting.
neither my boss nor do we have frequent contact.
But you have regular contact with ByteDance,
With the CEO of ByteDance.
who is Mr. Zhang Fuping is the
He's not.
editor-in-chief.
He's not the
My
CEO.
colleague, Representative Burgess, a few minutes ago exposed that TikTok and ByteDance share legal teams. You confirmed this, correct?
Our general counsel is
Yes.
an
Yes or
American lawyer,
Yes.
veteran of Microsoft.
Also, my
Many years.
colleague, Representative Latta, confirmed that your parent company, ByteDance, currently can access user data. Yes?
Yes.
We have to be more
Yes.
specific.
Yes.
After
You
Project
say-
Texas, no.
I'm not asking after Project Texas. I'm asking now. Yes.
Some user data is public data, Congresswoman, which
So
means
you
everybody
confirm that.
can search
What's
for it on the
interesting to
internet.
me is that you have used the word transparency over a half a dozen times in your opening testimony and subsequently again in your answers to my colleagues. Yet the interesting thing to me is that ByteDance, your parent company, has gone out of their way to hide an airbrush corporate structure ties to the CCP, the company's founder, and their activities. You can look no further than the fact that ByteDance website has been scrubbed. In fact, we found web pages from the Beijing Internet Association, the industry association charged
the right
with
clip?
Communist Party building.
I thought this was gonna be
work
about the
of
violence, the
internet
threat of the
companies
violence.
in
Maybe later.
Beijing. They
Okay.
have been archived,
Yeah, no, here,
but
let me
since
just skip
the leaked
ahead.
memo from your company, why, if you had nothing to hide, would you need to downplay
Right.
the association with ByteDance in China?
Congresswoman, I have not seen this memo.
You
What
can't
I
answer
can
that
say-
question. Mr. Show, I'd like to direct your attention to
Yeah,
the
so she's
screen
talking
for a
about the
short
video
video,
right
if you
now.
don't
Right
mind.
here. Okay. So this is a gun that's pointed at the congressperson?
Yeah, I mean, it's just how it was edited together.
Yeah.
It says me as F at the House Energy Commerce Committee. So it's like saying like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do at the Energy and Commerce Committee.
Right.
3/23/2023.
What was there? And this was up for 41 days, right? Before.
Yeah.
So do you have the response there?
Yeah.
From the yeah.
Let me go ahead and play that.
Okay.
Mr. Show, that video was posted 41 days ago. As you can see, it is captioned me as F at the House Energy and Commerce Committee on March 23rd of this year. This video was posted before this hearing was publicly noticed. I think that's a very interesting point to raise. But more concerning is the fact that it names this chairwoman by name. Your own community guidelines state that you have a firm stance against enabling violence on or off TikTok. We do not allow people to use our platform to threaten or incite violence or to promote violent extremist organizations, individuals, or acts. When there is a threat to public safety or an account is used to promote or glorify off-platform violence, we ban the account. This video has been up for 41 days. It is a direct threat to the chairwoman of this committee, the people in this room, and yet it still remains on the platform. And you expect us to believe that you are capable of maintaining the data security, privacy, and security of 150 million Americans where you can't even protect the people in this room?
Wow. I mean, I think that was one of the biggest quotes from the hearing.
Yeah, and I mean, granted, look, they're probably using an algorithm to catch, this type of content.
Well, yeah.
and actually probably worse content, right?
Right.
But yeah, there's no excuse why this content shouldn't have been flagged and taken down.
Right.
Just the context of the way the footage was used, how it was used in that way. Yeah, that's pretty messed up.
Yeah. Then there's the next clip I think we want to talk about was the threats for suicide or things like that, because that was pretty powerful too. That was the representative from Florida. You have that one, right?
Yeah, I just got to find it.
Okay. It was basically saying that the algorithm, there are people that have like failed at some of these challenges or have done some of these challenges, like the choking challenge and these other things that sort of bubble up to the top of the feed, and it's really disturbing as a
what's
parent.
the other one? Those like
Yeah.
Tide Pod challenges. It's all on social media. Like,
Yeah.
they have all these. Oh, what is it now? The Borg challenge.
What's that one?
Where? Oh my god. Okay, take a gallon of.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. I was thinking
every
Star
single
Trek.
type of alcohol
Yep.
and down it.
Yep. I remember
Like
there
you're
was-
gonna get alcohol poisoning.
Yeah.
Like what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just find it real quick.
I thought it was that you had to pretend to be like a Borg from Star Trek. I'm like, what's the problem with that one?
No. I think this is it here. Let me just pull this up.
Remember the days of viral videos where it was just like, hey, just plank for a while, or
Ice bucket challenge.
the ice bucket challenge. You know, that seemed harmful or harmless. It seemed
Right.
now it's like we've got kids that are trying to, you know, get
Yeah.
other kids to do harm to themselves. It's really bad. I don't. But again, and we're going to bring this up too. Like this is a larger issue. Social media. It's not just TikTok, but in the interest of this one hearing, yeah, it's TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, basically the internet.
Did you not? Were you unable to find it?
Yeah, I have it. Hold on.
Okay.
Let me just pull it up here.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida.
Yeah, this is it.
Bill Rockus for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it very much. Thanks for holding this hearing. Mr. Chu, your algorithms have prioritized providing harmful content directly to children, like self-harm challenges and even suicide. Just 3 days ago,
Actually, hold on. Let me pause there for a second. I think honestly, all those challenges, the Tide Pod challenge, I know the Borg challenge, all these other challenges, it's all through TikTok or short form video.
The Tide Pod one may have been before TikTok. The Tide Pod one, I remember, that was from years ago.
Was it?
That was before.
That was relatively, recent-ish.
I thought it may have been a YouTube thing.
Okay.
But again, if you're,
it could have been. It could have been all of them, right?
How do you not know that eating Tide Pods is bad? All right. I mean, I guess that's a different.
Yeah. Well, like here's the other thing too. Just real quick before I jump back is like even if you do post it through TikTok, you record yourself doing something on TikTok, you could share that and propagate it through Facebook, Instagram. Right. So what about these other apps? Facebook, Instagram, they should be also banning this stuff from
That's
TikTok.
A larger issue that maybe they'll get into because of this. Maybe you will start seeing more regulation and better, better enforcement of some of these things.
Right. All right, let me go back.
Okay.
Italy opened an investigation into the TikTok over user safety concerns after the so-called French scar challenge went viral on your platform.
I don't know what that one is.
I don't know what
I
that
know
one is
you
either.
know about the blackout challenge, which others
that was
may
the choking
know
one.
as the choking challenge.
Jeez.
That encourages children to bring them to the point of unconsciousness, or in some cases, tragically, death. If that isn't enough, I want to share the story of Chase Nasca, a 16-year-old boy from New York who tragically ended his life a year ago by stepping in front of a train. I want to thank his parents. Again, they are here. I want to thank his parents for being here today and allowing us to show this. Mr. Chu, your company destroyed their lives. Your company destroyed their lives. I admire their courage to be here and share Chase's story in the hopes that it will prevent this from happening to other families. The content in Chase's For You page was not a window to discovery, as you boldly claim in your testimony.
This is pretty impressive.
It wasn't content from a creator that you invited to roam the hill today, or STEM education content that children in China see. Instead, his For You page was sadly a window to discover suicide. It is unacceptable, sir, that even after knowing all these dangers, you still claim TikTok is something grand to behold. I want you to see what Chase would see. And I think if you want, again, would you share this content with your children, with your two children?
No.
Would you want them to see this?
No, I wouldn't either. Yeah.
And again, I want to warn everyone watching that you may find this content disturbing, but we need to watch this, please.
Blair tip. You got to kill yourself.
Oh, word? Like right now?
And then I'm going to put a shotgun in my mouth and blow the brains out of the back of my head.
cool.
Yeah. Like, what does that one say? Not gonna lie, homie. Truly am not doing good.
Parked in front of a train track.
Yeah. Like, and this was all in his feed, right?
Yeah. So we get the idea.
Yeah.
The thing is, and I'm honestly just curious. I don't have TikTok.
Right.
I have Facebook and Instagram. That's about it. But like, does this content stem directly from TikTok? Like, I'm wondering if they're able to kind of like follow the breadcrumbs as to who started the trend, right? Because these are trends.
These are videos that people make, and yeah, they can be from anywhere.
Okay.
You know, a lot of them can be from the U.S. and they start going viral and they start popping up. Like, again, you watch one video of a college girl dancing, for example, and then TikTok goes, "Oh, you must like that. Here's another 20."
Well, yeah, that's
instead of trying to find interesting content, it's just like, here's what's popular.
It's the issue with the algorithm, because it wants to show you what you like to watch,
right?
But it's like, if you just hover, even if you just hover over content, and I think this is true with YouTube,
with the other ones too.
Instagram,
Yeah.
other social media apps. Even if you just hover over a piece of content for a certain amount of seconds, it's going to be like it's going to go ding, check mark. Okay, he likes that content. So next time he goes back to the homepage, it's going to show similar content.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think to what the congressmen or women were saying, you know, I think it's a larger issue
right.
with social media, not just TikTok, but I think it's more apparent with TikTok.
So there definitely was a lot of theatrical grandstanding and angry rants. And I guess in this case, it was good. I'm glad that at least this is bubbling up to the surface for a lot of us that have known about this for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think my next question is like, what the heck can they do?
Right. So
what's going to happen?
Yeah. So here's the bad news.
Probably nothing.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, there's a lot of remedies and solutions. You would think that like, oh my gosh, this is so bad, we've just got to kind of get rid of it. But you know, during the Trump administration, he tried to use an executive order to ban it and was blocked by judges. So they said this can't be banned under executive order. So, you know, Congress, there's a lot of bills in Congress now that are going through and they're trying to figure out if they can ban it. You know, the Biden administration is trying to get them to sell TikTok, you know, ownership to a different company, spin it off,
to
make
US,
sure it's a
right?
US based company. Yeah. But then, right, you know, again, as we talked about earlier on, China is opposing that. And so proving that they're owned by, you know, that they're controlled by the Chinese government or Chinese party. Google and Apple could take the app off of their platforms, which means that people that already have it just wouldn't be able to get updates, and eventually the app would stop working, or
it would just die out.
Because
you're not going to have any new users.
I would basically encourage any parents that might be concerned to just delete it from the phone, from their phone, and then, you know, have a real good discussion with your kids about it. I mean, I'm going to have a discussion with my kids. I'm kind of terrified about, you know, looking at seeing what is recommended for them. Now, a lot of it's goofy, goofy stuff. So I don't know. Should I allow goofy stuff if I know that, you know, they could still have access to the data that they have? And, you know, that was an interesting part of this too, is that TikTok invited a bunch of influencers to sort of like protest and, you know, hey, this is our livelihood and this is how we make a lot of money. And yet, you know, a lot of them do make money off of this, and sponsors, you know, they do pay a lot of money to have their products sort of promoted and, you know, there's advertising. And again, it's like this on other platforms, you know, other Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, that kind of stuff too. But the influencers, like that sort of fell on deaf ears. I don't think that they were surprised. They didn't have as much of an influence, to use the bad pun, on this hearing. I don't think anybody is saying like, oh, we should protect these people from, because I think TikTok influencer does not have a great reputation, because again, you're doing kind of goofy, dumb stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not productive. I don't think it's productive. I don't think it's constructive.
Right.
But it's sad too. I read this somewhere. I think it was in a lecture somewhere I watched about how a lot of students now coming out of college a lot of their aspirations are to be influencers.
Yeah.
A YouTube influencer, a social media influencer,
Yeah.
like as a real job. And it's like, you really should start with some base form of a job, not an influencer.
Well, a lot of them end up finding out that a lot of that becomes a job, especially YouTube influencer.
I mean, it's just marketing.
Just, you have to do an episode almost every day. You have to do, and then you have to luck out that the content is going to be good enough to start generating revenue and all this stuff. I mean, we deal with that here with this show. Like, when we're trying to get more people to watch.
But we try to be constructive with what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
We're kind of like delivering the latest tech news, right?
Right, and sort of digesting it for you so that you don't have to go and watch 50 different episodes.
Yeah.
Right.
So with this, at the end of the day, what we're trying to say is get rid of TikTok.
because then you have to watch us. Like, I could just do a goofy dance, and
No.
it's not me. That's not me. And, I don't think anybody should pretend to be something like that. One other thing that we haven't talked about was that, there were these discussions about, baked in time limits for people that are underage and, restrictions. If you're under a certain age, you should have a time limit. Those don't work, right?
They don't work. You can easily get around that.
I mean, I knew how to get around some restrictions when I was a teenager using computers. I definitely know that my kids probably know how to get around some of that stuff too.
Yeah.
It's more about having that discussion with them so that they don't go searching for that, the bad content,
Right.
and knowing whether this I'm pretty sure my kids are never going to do a choking challenge or a, and it does come back to parenting there, but. In the end, when you're talking about all this stuff, it has to go back to the idea of the user data is, and who has access to it and what are they going to do with that access? Could they start limiting? Could they turn on that little censorship thing, and then all of a sudden, could they influence an election? Could you say like,
easily.
you know what, we want the Democrat to win again, or we want the Republican?
They've done it with Twitter. They've done it with Twitter. There's been evidence to show that it's been done with
Look
Twitter.
how many users are young and are about to vote, and they're like, well, we're just going to pump them with opinions and candidates and TikToks from one party, and then that will help us influence the election. I'm like, I don't think anybody wants that.
Do you think Biden will create his own TikTok account?
Wow, that's a loaded question, isn't it?
Well, so like here's the other thing.
There probably already is some stuff out there. I mean, well, actually, no. If they did have a verified account, or it would probably be deleted.
It's going to be deepfake Biden having a very coherent conversation with someone.
Boy, yeah. I'm hopeful that something happens from this. I think that the fact that they were united might help, but as we saw from the Ticketmaster thing, did anything really happen with them?
No, nothing's gonna happen. But this is what I was gonna say about the hearing, right? We watched the hearing, most of it,
some of it,
80%. Say 80%. I mean, a lot of it was repeatable stuff.
Okay,
right. But it's like after watching it, it's like, are we surprised? Is anything that they found out surprising? Like, we kind of had an idea about it. Right. So, but after knowing that, it's like, do we think anything's going to happen?
I think what was surprising was the fact that the CEO of TikTok did not do a better job of trying to convince these people that, that they were going to, that he didn't come off as very trustworthy or earning the trust. I think other companies may have done a better job of trying that, but then the Ticketmaster guy didn't either. Like I saw his answers as sort of slimy too.
To me, he came off as being too dodgy, like trying to like weave and dodge around the questions instead of trying to give an answer. But to his defense, it's like a lot of the congresspeople really didn't give him a chance to answer. Right.
And sometimes the congressmen and congresswomen want to just showboat and want to just sort of grandstand because then they have their clip for when they're going to be reelected.
Right.
But
I mean, good on them. Good on them for doing the hearing
let's wait and see what happens over the next few weeks. If we get any, if legislation starts moving, if you start seeing other governments start to ban it, it would be interesting to see if Europe does something with the GDPR and then really go after them. But again, I don't know if there is an answer other than if you are concerned about this and you have kids that are using it, have a discussion with them and then delete it from their phone if you are concerned about that kind of stuff. they'll find it through other platforms. The harmless stuff, hopefully. So that's all I got this week.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's it for me. I think it's been made pretty clear with the hearing, or rather the lack of information the CEO was able to give. Just kind of highlights the whole thing.
Yep. All right, so stay tuned just to see more of this TikTok. I'm sure this story's not going to go away, just like all that ChatGPT stuff too. And that's all the time we have for today's episode. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, add any comments that you have below. And we will do new episodes every week, so please join us, and thanks for watching.